Mr. Driehaus?
Yes.
Mr. Etheridge?
Blake had to step out.
Okay. Mr. Kelly?
Also step
He's a yes, but
Mr. Metz?
Yes.
Ms. Motts? Yes. Ms. Robinson? Yes. And Ms. Sheets?
okay. Blake and Mr. Kelly are both favorable of that, but I don't think we need to have that on the record just to put it on the consent. Okay, thank you. Now let's jump into our briefing items. John, the executive team is going to lead off with good news. We'll turn the microphone over now. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Let's jump right to it with Adrian and our most recent employees of the month.
All right, good morning again. Starting off with our leadership employee of the month, Jeremy Darnell. Jeremy is in the maintenance department, supervisor in the maintenance department, and he's just being recognized for his due diligence around covering extra shifts when there are shortages in the department and developing a high-performing team. Then we have Miguel Ruiz, who is in our IT area, and Miguel is being recognized for his work during the big outage we had worldwide, and that he was very responsive, taking calls starting at 1 a.m. in the morning until 5 a.m., and understood the impact to our systems and our external customers. And so he's being recognized for his great customer service and outstanding work at the service desk during that time. And then we have Queensgate Operator of the Month, Justin Piper. Justin is being recognized because he was able to de-escalate a situation involving a passenger who had gotten somewhat irate over a dispute relative to the fare box. And he quickly de-escalated the situation and even gave the customer a refund on their fare. So he's being recognized for his great work there. Then we have Linda Hall, who is the maintenance employee of the month. Linda's just being recognized for her servicing of the coaches. She does a great job, performs extra duties beyond what's normally assigned to her, taking initiative to do additional cleaning and fuel and topping off the buses, things like that with fluids. So thank you, Linda. And then we have Bond Hill operator Mark Grimes. Mark is being recognized for his work around July 4th at the close to the close of his shift. He was passing a gas station and noticed an elderly customer there who was a regular rider on his bus. And he knew that this particular individual had some challenges with possible dementia and recognized that she might not be in the best state at the gas station. He reached out to the dispatch area to relay that information, which led to her being found and returned safely to her home. And he was even willing to go and do a wellness check on her after it was all said and done. So that's the great kind of work we want to continue to see our operators perform. And then Bond Hill maintenance employee Shane Clark. Shane is just being recognized for his willingness to work and assist others whenever he's requested or anything's asked of him, and for always going above and beyond with the safety and cleanliness of the buses. And finally, Access employee Curtis Robinson. Curtis Robinson is being recognized for the wonderful customer service he does with our customers, and a feedback received recently. He received over 90% of customer feedback as one of the top drivers in terms of his customer service and how he takes care of his customers. So congratulations to all of the July Silver Wheel winners. And then next we have here a picture of our at a graduating class, a few of our recent graduates, bus operator graduates. We continue to do a lot of aggressive recruiting for our fixed route operator service. And so these were just some of the individuals we were there to celebrate as they graduated, having taken their trial trip and are now in service, or in progression, I should say, with the fixed route service. And then next, we worked and participated in the Black Men's Wellness Day. We had volunteers from Metro in our organization, and they participated in the 5K walk run. You can see several of our employees there, and on-site screening for wellness around African American men. And
All right, thanks, Adrian, but don't go anywhere. Welcome to one of the best parts of my job, and speaking about recognition of the organization and the staff. I think any company's mission or employer's mission, its highest height, is to be a great place to work, right? Work means opportunity for people and their families. The work we do here is work done with a culture of dignity and respect. There are probably few peaks as high as being recognized as an all-about women best place to work in the women of color category. We have focused on building a workforce that is diverse, inclusive, equitable, and it is successful. It is a successful model and now a recognized model. Probably no better person to spotlight for this work than Senior Vice President of Human Resources, Adrian Hairston. She leads a team that recruits, hires, onboards, trains, develops, and we have so many managers and leaders in the organization that make this a great place to work. For Adrian and everybody that has a hand in building that culture, hearty congratulations. And yes.
Chelsea and I attended, and I was so proud and honored to be there with the staff. I mean, you're awesome. And Elaine accepted the award, and it was a last minute. First they kept saying, let the board member go up. No, you did the work. And Elaine went up and spoke. Oh my goodness, she sold the whole organization. And so I was just really proud to be there and very honored to be among the staff that was there. And Adrienne, I missed her, but she must have done a wonderful job because when she came to the table, everybody started clapping for her. So thank you so much.
Adrienne did do an excellent job speaking. I mean, she had everyone captivated, and it was beautiful. Not only was she sharp, okay, because you see this two-piece
Yeah, she
pink
had the
number.
pink on.
I mean, she came in there, everyone's like, who is that? Metro's doing it like that. So she represented extraordinarily well and really honed in on the things that make it such a wonderful workplace, and people were taking a lot of notes. And so you better be careful because, people are trying to get her.
And I was more than honored when I walked in. I knew a lot of the, I'm going to say mentors that were there, my era, and and there was a lot of young women who have stepped up and taken the mic, and I felt honored to walk in and they said, "Gwen, whose table are you with?" And I was able to say, "SORTA Metro," and they said, "SORTA or Metro." So I just use our language as we have it now, SORTA Metro. But I was just honored because they were asking me, who are you with? There were so many different organizations, and I was very proud to acknowledge that I was with this organization. So thank you.
Very good, thank you, and congratulations again.
And John, I really
Yes.
like how this layout is as opposed to it previously, because we had, when they were passing off the award, sometimes it was hard to figure out who was the recipient, and so I like this, that we have it now with just their individual pictures, just saying.
I can take no credit for the layout of this slide.
Well done.
Disclaimer there, but
Well
thank you.
done.
Thank you, Adrian. Congratulations, Adrian, too. So we're halfway through the good news report, right?
Yeah.
So, John, you're going to take it from here?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Let's keep with the award-winning theme here. And when you think of mission and purpose and servant leadership, Daryl might be happy that it's not here for this gushing over him, but I'll do it anyways. Daryl's being recognized as a game changer by the local Cincinnati chapter of the NAACP, who received this recognition at their annual Freedom Fund dinner. This recognition is for individuals whose contributions and extraordinary actions are vital to the mission of the goals and objectives of the local NAACP chapter, and they make a noticeable difference. That certainly sums up Daryl, his work, and how he guides this organization through our mission and purpose. Congrats to Daryl. when he's here next week at the meeting, we'll be sure to gush over him in person and embarrass him a little bit. That's always fun. So congratulations, boss. More awardees in recognition. Congrats to Brandy Jones, Chief Communications and Marketing Officer, and I guess we're scaring him away. Haled's not here either. Chief Strategic Planning Development and Innovation Officer, I got it out. They are finalists for the Business Courier C-Suite Awards in 2 different categories, your work, dedication, and achievement. We know them. We know you're great. The business community is now recognizing that greatness. I'll say good luck to you, but maybe good luck to all the other nominees for going against you. They're going to need it. Congratulations, Brandy and Khaled. You're almost done with me. No higher priority than the safety of our operators and how they interact with our customers. The pandemic has brought upon a lot of advancements in the space of what we call driver barriers, the safety features of the driver cabin and compartment. We have been sampling the latest and greatest the market has to offer. You may recall that we've had a factory version of a barrier installed since the 2021 fixed route fleet, but due to the pandemic, our team outfitted the entire fleet with barriers. We are now upgrading all of those that take into account operator safety and comfort, but then also making sure we continue to interact with customers. So thank you very much to Mike Weil, the Joint Safety Committee, the procurement team, the maintenance leaders. We're looking forward to finishing this product, and when we procure this new barrier, once installed, we will have safety barriers of the highest quality throughout the fleet in early 2025. All right, and Brandy's here to share some news regarding the Bengals and the Metro partnership.
Well, if you love the Bengals and you love Metro, we have great news. You can ride free to the game on Sunday, October 6th. Thank you to a sponsorship by Miller Lite. They have graciously sponsored free rides for the entire day on both the Metro service and our Access Paratransit service. So certainly take advantage of that free ride day. Give Metro a try to the game or to anywhere else you may be wanting to go that Sunday. But we look forward to cheering on the Bengals during that home game. Blink is just around the corner, October 17th through the 20th, and it is one of those major events that Metro is happy to partner with and to help our community as well as visitors navigate through this really awesome event in our community. 2 years ago, there was estimated about more than 2 million individuals who came into town or who participated in this event, and with all of the road closures that are anticipated downtown and through over the Rhine, we are going to offer free service to the community after 6 p.m. each night of the Blink service. Additionally, because of the volume and the street closures, the government square will be closed and all service will be rerouted through the Riverfront Transit Center each evening beginning at 6 p.m. And so we definitely want anyone who is interested in coming down to the festival to take advantage of Metro. We are activating 2 park and rides, one at Cincy State and the other at Oakley's Crossroad Church. There will be lots of festivities there. We have a DJ on site. We'll be giving out lots of Metro swag. If you participated last year, hopefully you got one of the Metro Blink bracelets that flashed in the dark. So we are bringing those much demanded swag items back. So please do, if you're able, stop at one of the park and ride locations, hop on a free bus to get down to the festival. And certainly it's a great way to experience the light show without having to worry about driving or traffic or congestion. So again, don't blink and drive, ride Metro. Thank you.
Brandy, that's good news. One question though on the how do we communicate that for the regular riders? Government Square will now be down at the banks. How do we go about communicating?
Yes, so we will use all of our typical communication platforms. So there will be social media, there will be a news release. We partner with the Chamber on some broader news announcements as well that will be coming out here shortly. It'll be in our customer newsletter. We'll have text alerts that go out to anyone who has registered for our Easy Alert system. I'm sure there'll be lots of news coverage talking about Blink and showing how people can access and use getting around to the show and back, and Metro will certainly be a part of all those communications.
The good news is if you put Blink in a press release, every media outlet in the city comes. So
Yeah,
there'll be no
I'm
shortage.
sure Blake will. I'm talking about the regular riders.
Yep,
like,
absolutely.
I'm sure we'll work to
And on
inform
that
the regular
point, Dan,
riders.
we'll have a lot of Metro staff at Government Square in the RTC. So as we approach the hours where Government Square is closing,
Yeah.
making sure everybody knows, they know how to get to Government Square.
Okay.
A lot of folks on the ground for these 4 days.
Cool. Thank you.
And our
It's a good idea with the monitors.
Yeah,
maybe,
we can do that. We can
We'll
certainly
look
add them in the interior, the Government Square sign that kind of flanks the 5th Street Walnut side. We'll have a message up indicating about the service change. As I mentioned, the text alert. So anyone who has signed up, there's about almost 30,000 signees in that system who get either emails or text alerts from us who are bus riders. So we'll be communicating through all of our established platforms. August is working on a time-lapse video indicating how to go from the Government Square to the RTC. So if someone's like, how in the world do you get there? We're going to show you how to navigate down to the center. So we'll be deploying lots of communication tools to help make it very clear, lots of signage during the festival indicating where those routing changes will be.
Great.
Brandy, I have a question about the Miller Lite sponsorship. That's a great partnership. How much does it cost for a company to sponsor for a day like that?
The fee changes by day type. So this is a Sunday, which is a lighter load than a weekday service. I'll have to go back and get the exact amount, but typically it's around 45 to 50,000. But it changes as our ridership continues to increase. I know this past week we'd had several days that were in the 50,000 plus ridership, which is like record for us. So certainly as our ridership continues to increase, we evaluate what those numbers look like and give a fair price based on that.
Okay, that's a great partnership. Yeah.
It is. Thank you.
Thanks.
I just want to note the operations has blinked down. I mean, last year's operation was phenomenal. No surprises except for the quality of the DJ at Cincinnati State was really quite nice. So, like, even though I had to wait in line with a good number of people, I enjoyed the time. So, good job, ops, for handling this, for everybody, for the organization, and for the whole region.
Can I just add to that, because watching this go from 2017, where it was a small group of folks looking at maps, aerial maps the night before, trying to find parking lots, to being where we are today, planned. It's also worth noting that for a lot of folks, your local bus service is the best way to get to Blink, right? You do not have to use a park and ride. You can still get on our 24-hour bus routes. You can still get on, and a lot of people do that. And so I think as we message that, I know that's for me, it's actually much easier for me to hop on the 17 and get downtown than it is to go to Cincinnati State and wait in the line, right? And so making sure that we tell the story of what the local service is, I think is really important, because that also alleviates the parking challenges at these two places. So kudos to the team. It's been a huge evolution from
Thanks for
2017
bringing
to
that up. I think that's basically what Don was asking. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, Dan, Don, it's same idea.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, John. So is that a wrap on the good
That's the
news?
news. That's a
okay.
wrap.
Well, that's very good news. So thank you. CPS briefing, John. There's some good news in there too as well.
There is. Let's keep it rolling. As the board is aware, we've got about 10,000 CPS passes. Those have been delivered. An update that now includes the extracurricular passes. As of September 9th, you'll recall that is now an RFID pass, not a flash pass. Those have also been distributed. So now that passes are in all students' hands, we move forward from the free rides and such with all the student communications, and several weeks into the school year to pass and fare enforcement from our bus operators. You'll recall that CPS also purchases smart cars for other schools served by the district. Production, delivery, and distribution of those, namely to things like the Dawn Academy, that will occur throughout the month of September. Many parties are aware of that. This has come up in our discussions with the city, CPD, CPS, Dawn, local youth advocates. So everybody's aware this is a plan and cooperating with that initiative as well. Moving to some points of data. Daily CPS pass usage average around 9,000 rides. We had 9,700 last week. Actually, last Wednesday, September 11th, we had 10,000 CPS rides in a day. So ridership continues to climb as the school year progresses. But you also see, for context, the activity in the afternoons at 4 transit centers. So you think of 10,000 safe rides, 250 or so uses at Government Square for transfers. And again, as a reminder, how much more streamlined the network has become now in the 4th year of this program.
Hey, John, on that Government Square number, that's what, about 50 more students at Government Square in the afternoons than it was last year, or average last year?
Average, yes, but now that we have everybody on the RFID pass,
We might not have been
approximately-
tracking some of those.
What's that?
We might not have been tracking some of those in that number last
Maybe
year.
not tracking, and now also we have the data to advise students that might have a more streamlined trip.
Yeah.
So 258 might be the use. Now we get to the coaching with the parents, the schools, the students, that you might have a more streamlined trip option. You don't need to use Government Square. So now that we've kind of captured that universe, the passes are distributed. Now we move forward to analyzing the data and that kind of coaching.
Got it. Thanks.
And we have a lot more, I mean, goodness, nearly double in terms of direct routes. So over time, we'll see that alleviation down there as well.
That's right. For some context, we've also reached out to systems in the industry. These are just a few examples. This is nowhere near an exhaustive list. But this is not unique, right? There are many systems that do this sort of arrangement with their local junior high and high school students. All of these systems here have some form of, like we do, a contractual discounted fare arrangement with their local school district, whether that's paying for passes up front or stored value cards or tracking students' ride and getting a reimbursement after the fact. Very similar programs in these cities and certainly others. Next
Question
step.
about
Yes.
that, if I may jump in. 'Cause I'd like to better understand how other cities contract to provide the services.
Sure.
I think we're pretty much a straightforward, we sell the passes, right? And then we do all this administrative work, operational work to make sure it happens, right?
That's right.
Okay.
Some other systems, they may not have this kind of pass technology. For the RFID, you might key in on a fare box that's a student ride. So sort of a manual count of rides, students showing school IDs, for example, and then the authority counting those rides, invoicing the local district, and then they have some kind of agreed upon price per ride. There are other systems much larger, say Philadelphia, for example, that actually has stored valued cards for students. I mean, these are students that are having to use transit all the time. You can imagine mass transit in an area like Philly and cities like that, where then the discounted fare is just deducted from a stored value card. So all sorts of things on the spectrum, right? From that kind of manual count and reimbursement to stored value cards to system like ours, but certainly common in the industry.
And all fare-based.
What's that?
All fare-based.
Yep.
I think to Blake, you asked a question though about the administrative side of it. I'd be also really interested to know what these cities do around the overhead associated with this, and if there's anyone who's managing that really well. I'd be interested in that.
Sure. Yeah, we can certainly reach out and continue that discussion. As for next steps, our collaborative efforts continue. They certainly will. They don't stop. It's what our teams and CPS teams regularly do. The ridership analysis well underway. We continue to share that with the schools and stakeholders. And that engagement now includes not only a Government Square working group, but also a group run through, or I guess chaired by, the Assistant City Manager's Office to focus on Oakley and issues there as well. So just another example of the continued conversation and collaboration. Any questions about CPS and related concerns?
Just want to make sure you are meeting with the superintendent,
That's right.
because the communication between the superintendent and the staff is much closer, because that's happening. I did get a chance to speak with her, and she is saying that her staff, they are meeting. And see, before we kind of disconnected from the superintendent, and so the information that was being relayed was different than what we were hearing here.
Yep, he's certainly a key partner.
Stay close to Shauna.
And we have been in, as mentioned in the previous slide, multiple working group meetings, and CPS has been represented there, their board, their superintendent, and their staff, and we communicate almost daily with their staff. So we've had strong communication.
Make sure that continues, because if you remember, they had turnover in the staff. And so that turnover really changed the trajectory of the information, how it was getting out. So that's good. We're at a higher level of communication.
John, with the 7th and 8th graders at Schroeder moving over to Desmond Street in Madisonville, has that transition gone smoothly for us?
So Desmond Street, is that the Odell Owens Academy? That's not the proper name, but is that where you mean that like middle school area?
I don't know the proper name for it.
It's about 2 blocks north of Madison.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we've had conversations with them as well. What we're hearing back from CPS is that it's working because the bus stop is 2 blocks away, and it's a very quiet residential walk
Yes.
between there to the school. But we've also heard that's putting a lot of kids on the sidewalk in front of a few residential houses, and so we're having discussions with them.
Okay.
But right now, the status quo is that it's working just fine.
Okay,
and
so
those
they're walking
students-
to Madison.
They're walking to
Okay.
Madison to board, and they're walking from Madison to get to school.
Yeah, okay. Okay,
But
thanks.
that discussion continues to see if that's the best way forward.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any more questions or comments for John? Okay, thank you for walking us through the CPS report. Patrick, are you ready to talk about data strategy?
Sure.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Pat Giblin. I'm the CIO. Wanted to talk briefly today, and I'll kind of keep this high level and brief, but feel free to ask any questions. And I'm going to talk about our data strategy, because you get to see a lot of what we do, both from the standpoint of the data that we present and a lot of the investments and things that we make. But as far as how it gets from here to there, I want to kind of give you a quick vision of how we work through some of that stuff. So, like anything, it's not just buying some software, buying some data, or buying a tool. It's about people, process, and technology, and how we work through that, and how we leverage all of those things besides this behind the scenes. Next slide. Business intelligence is not new at Metro. We've been doing this for years. We use a product called SSRS, which is SQL Reporting Services, and we've had that for close to a decade. We also have a dedicated department of a couple individuals that stay focused on meeting with operations staff, maintenance, and other departments to build out reporting and analyzing that helps assist in all areas of our business. But it's pretty two-dimensional. So it's kind of one of those things where you build a report based upon date range or periods and things like that. Go to the next slide. One of the things that we want to reinforce is we are data-driven. If you go to the next slide. You'll see this in every one of these meetings and board meetings, and you're only seeing the tip of the iceberg as to what the business sees, right? We stay focused. We don't make decisions around gut feelings or anything else. We always assure that the organization has the data needed to make intelligent business decisions, and we work very hard on that. Here's a sampling. IT even uses it. We have user dashboards and things like that to make sure that we're turning over service tickets and things quickly. Certainly all the ridership information you see, daily operation summaries. We stay very focused on making sure that the organization has the data it needs. Go ahead. All of this requires constant refresh. It's not you do it once and you're done. So what we're going through right now is a series of investments, both in time and in money, to continue to elevate our game. So we recently completed a workshop with senior business leaders, subject matter experts, people that own business processes, facilitated by a group called Infotech, to make sure that our business strategy is in line with the things that we're doing from a system and an IT and a data perspective to make sure that those stakeholders in the business are getting the information they need and will continue to get the information they need to drive our business strategy forward. Next slide. We never start from scratch unless we have to. So we're continuing to leverage the investments that we've already made. Again, we use SQL reporting services today. We're going to be moving that to a more three-dimensional tool called Power BI. We've already been piloting it internally to a lot of success. We use it for several operation reports already, and we're going to be expanding on that and using it even more in the future. And that's all built around the Microsoft 365 tools that we have and our SQL Server-based environments and systems. Next slide. As part of that, we've done an RFP. It probably won't be to the board for a month or two yet on developing that even more. So taking what we already have, meeting more with stakeholders, flushing out our KPIs, and really giving ourselves a jump start on how we leverage our dashboards, how we improve operational efficiencies as we grow, and giving those strategic thinkers and leadership more data to make better decisions moving forward. Again, all being data driven. Next slide. To help with that, we're investing in our people. We have made an arrangement, I believe this went through the board last month, with Miami University. So we have our HR training department's already set up our first cohort of groups of individuals to go through this, and we will continue to leverage the Ohio Tech cred and make this very economical, at the same time investing in our people to make them better at leveraging that data. Because everybody has to understand that there's no magic bullet we can go by that's going to show you what the data is willing to tell you. We've got to invest in our people to get them up to speed on those things. Next slide. To give you an example of how that ties back, it ties back to procurements we've made in the past, procurements we're making in the future, procurements we're making today. And that is, we have to invest in gathering the data, getting the data into consolidated areas, doing data cleansing, making sure that the data is accurate. All of those things require investments in time and money and systems. And you can see on the slide there's some key investments we've previously made, as well as some that we're doing, including the Power BI dashboard development. Any questions?
Pat, thanks for reporting out on that. I don't think it's a surprise to a lot of people in industry that dashboards are the way of operations now compared to reporting, right? Instantaneous dashboard use and then the reporting data behind that. But for a government entity like ours to be so current on our updating dashboards, I think is just fantastic. And I can't think of a government entity, a quasi-government entity that would be where this would be more useful than ours. We can drill down the KPI goals immediately rather than wait until the end of the month or the end of the week or the reporting period. And it's just phenomenal that you have these tools. So
it gets very exciting once you start bringing in other tools like AI, where it kind of helps you pull out those anomalies for you. Mm-hmm. It's a great platform that we're building on too. We'll continue to grow and invest in it.
Are there any questions for Pat?
Thank you, Pat. This is really good. I had 6 and you've answered 5 of them. This is very good.
So one more?
In terms of just how we're sharing this data, I'm assuming we're working with contractors and third-party other agencies. What does that what does that data sharing policy look like when we share these
It's
data?
really very specific to the subject matter of the data. So in other words, we do NTD reporting. So that data gets read out and fed up to the NTD, as well as we're going to, as part of this development, ingest other data to make those dashboards more statistically or frequently available to operations staff so we can do quicker comparisons of the data. But any data element, and if you go back to like the fact that we ran the workshop, what we do is we establish data owners. So for instance, HR owns the data around our employees. So any policy or any sharing of data around an employee would go through an approval process related through HR that Adrienne would review and her staff, and that then requires our her approval for us to then share any of that kind of stuff with them. Other data reporting is all done, ridership. Most of these things are public. It's public knowledge. It's things that we're required to share out with the public. But it really just depends on the data element.
Great.
Now, as we move, and as we, with this Power BI that's coming on board, and we see more data usage and efficiencies, are we also seeing a correlation with customer satisfaction, as we're seeing?
Actually, some of the biggest work we've done recently has been with our customer service department around customer satisfaction. And then what we do is if we have the data available and there's additional efficiencies and requests on how we can interact better with our customers, we then leverage that. And again, it's all very cyclical. We'll leverage that to try and make business process improvements around some of those things that the data is telling us.
Thank you.
But yeah, customer service has been a big consumer recently of our reporting efforts.
All right,
and
thanks,
building
Pat.
out dashboards.
Any more questions or comments for Pat? Okay, we appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Pete, we're going to move on to the next item on our agenda, Red Bike. You want to take the microphone from here, Pete?
Sure, and I think, Natalie, we'll be on the 7.1 summary presentation. I'm going to yield my time to Hugh Ralston. Hugh is with OneSource, and when this whole host of organizations came together to make sure that we could fund Red Bike for another year, Interact for Health not only stepped up to support that, but they also said, we see that there's need for process change. We see that there's need for sort of reimagining what this is, and they sponsored OneSource to come in and do the analysis that you're going to see today. So I'm going to hand it off to Hugh. Before I do that, I want to thank Andy and Haled and Brandy's teams, all of who have touched some of this over the last couple months to make sure that we were Metro was at the table, engaged in the conversations, and also sharing and analyzing data to our previous conversation to provide additional insights into this conversation. So Hugh will note we're sort of through phase 1 of 3 here and thought it was a perfect time to come back to the board. So Hugh, the floor is yours.
Thank you. We appreciate the chance to give a summary presentation. I understand you've seen the full presentation we made to the steering committee a couple of weeks ago. So my goal today is just to run through where we are in this project and be happy to answer any questions. So as Pete mentioned, we were hired by Interact to do some consulting work and to work with staff and the Red Bike Board to identify some issues in this significant transition period. So the first phase we've completed, that was looking at comparable data from a number of different players. A second phase we're in the process of diving into, which is to present to the Red Bike Board a series of options looking at the budgets for 25 and 26. And then phase 3, as we move into that and whatever the realities are going to be for Red Bike, to think about what partnership needs and leadership needs are going to strengthen what Red Bike is doing for the next couple of years. So we started with a couple of core assumptions, which I hope everyone is going to agree with. The first of which is that Red Bike serves a public good and is therefore worthy of investing in and worthy of investing in its future success. As I'll show in a couple of summary slides and in the more detailed ones you have, the comparative data that my colleague put together shows that there are no major outliers with some of our competitors. Each system has its own quirks and peculiarities and distinctions, but there's nothing that says Cincinnati is out of the mainstream from expenses and revenues. The other core assumption is that we're not looking at some significant expansions until we fix the current funding model. Expansions are obviously on the table as we think about options in the future, but we're not going to solve the core problems by investing in expansion at the moment. And I think, as all of you know, the disappearance of a major single corporate funder was the catalyst for what we're doing now and taking a look at different options. So the current situation is Red Bike is stable. There's money in the bank. Absent any new money, that money will be spent by the 1st of April. We have one new funder that's come in since Red Bike reopened in May of this year. Revenues from mid-May through toward the end of August are relatively stable. The number of passes and riders is down a little bit. The disruption in the system from closure in December to May clearly had an impact in terms of rebuilding. Next slide. So we looked at, working closely with Doug and the staff at Red Bike, what are the appropriate comparative models that we looked at? Some are larger, some are smaller, and so we're sort of right in the middle. Some have different kinds of structures. A couple went out of business. Some of them are attached to larger regional transportation partners. As we look at the data, next slide, please. Red Bike is
one thing on the comparison group. It's worth noting that this is self-reported information. It's not like the NTD where there's like a common gold standard of numbers. So, as you think about numbers of stations and numbers of bikes, there's probably a little bit of variance on, I think our number is exactly what we have. Other systems, we can't be 100% sure that it's exactly 423 in Salt Lake City. So just know that there's a little bit of variance in that number.
And the source of this data is all public information. It's pulled from 990. So there's things behind the screen we're not going to have access to, and however useful or valuable it might be. If we look at the key comparative data, expenses by year, we're sort of in the middle of the track. Total revenue by year, there's some variability as we move from 21 to 22. Our spike reflected the delay, in part reflected by the delay in payments from the corporate sponsor. Funding that was related to the pandemic was a little volatile, and you can see that dropping off for almost everybody as we move from 22 into 23. Next slide. As we look at total revenue per trip by expense and total expense per trip by trip, you see the red dot is in the operable spot, which is to the left. Again, we look at these on the diagonal. The question here is, we're pretty good relative to where we should be. Are we too good in terms of controlling our expenses relative to the number of trips that we have? The key question that has emerged from looking at this data, and there's lots more slides if you're really interested in diving into it, is the question about fare box recovery, right? So it is clear that fare box is not paying the freight. I know that's a shocking surprise to anybody that runs a public transportation system, that we can't live on fare box. But this data really shows what the gap is per trip, per ride, and that is the gap that needs to be closed by outside funding. That is pointing us now to what we're in the middle of, which is a fare box review and policy considerations. So fare box is critical. There were some changes made in 2024, the implications of which are still unfolding, right? We only have about 4 months worth of data. It is unlikely in a budget of about, I think it's a little over $800,000. Fare box is a little over $370,000. With the most precise manipulation of fare box, we're probably not going to generate more revenue to close that gap, right? We might be able, as we get more and more targeted on who's using it more, and if there are ways that we can price it differently than we are now, we might raise upwards of $100,000, but probably not more than that. So the reality of that is that we are looking at different pricing models. We have a different pricing model than other of our competitors, and we need to develop and adjust a policy that might enhance our revenue but is not going to solve the fundamental shortfall. And that review is underway and will feed right into the 25-26 budget. So our conclusions is that so far, from what we can see, Redbox is operating efficiently. Non-Fairbox revenue is going to be critical, and that will consist probably of not a white horse with somebody riding with buckets of cash, but a combination of philanthropic support, public-private partnerships, investments, underwriting programs, some opportunities for folks to adopt a station in a way that helps their marketing, and perhaps some focus on travel and visitors so that we can find that most elusive of revenue, which is people pay for things they don't use, so we get money that drops to the bottom line without incremental costs. And obviously philanthropic support for the GO program, which is, given its subsidy, less of a revenue generator than the full fare. Sustainability requires some mix of new revenue. I think it's unrealistic to think that we're going to continue on the same expense level for multiple years without investments. We have Capital X, significant percentage of the bike fleet is electrified. There are opportunities perhaps for system expansion if the pricing structure is right and the sponsorship process is correct, but we need to get to that point in the future. And then the other side of the other half of the walnut, as it were, there are going to be limitations on growth, right? We can't be in every neighborhood. We have to think about the trade-off between our fare users. Do we have capacity for CapEx in terms of investing in new systems? Bikes get used, they get worn out, they need to be replaced. Over time, that's a virtual and virtuous process, but it's one that needs to be fed. And then the question is, how much growth can we deploy given the bikes that we have? So we are in the process of looking at farebox policy and developing budget parameters for the Red Bike board to think about. We're looking at options for partners, donors, and investors, and we expect then to present some of those options for consideration. Given the reality of timing and cycles, we think that a structure makes sense to think about by the time we get to Thanksgiving. We have enough money to get into the first part of the year, so we don't have to get things done, but we need to get a pretty strong sense of what that structure looks like as we get into January and February, next year's budgets for folks to take a look at and for investing in. Clearly, without the support of the folks who have stepped up to the plate earlier this year, Red Bike would not be working. I think there's a strong view that there are ways to find that process to continue. It may take us a year or so to think through maybe some larger strategic partners where we can connect the dots to a more effective and broader system. But we think we're in a place where we can present a compelling case for support. I'll stop there and be happy to answer any questions or get any other feedback.
Ms. Robinson, question?
Thank you. Pete, thank you for your detailed email, and thank you for your presentation. I don't know if this is in this phase or phase 2 or for phase 3, my question. One, I would like to see the demographics, who are using the bikes. I would like to see that.
Okay.
I would like to also know, is it more recreation versus transit? You know, are they using it for actual appointments, or are they using it more for recreation? So again, I don't know which phase you would find that.
So we can certainly provide some of that data. Some of it is probably harder to determine whether somebody's going from place to place or somebody's going to go on a day-long trip. And I think that depends in part from which users that we have, but we'll be happy to share whatever information we can distill.
Well, you know the destination. Is that accurate?
I believe so. That's correct.
Right,
Yeah, where the bike comes
right,
and goes.
right. Some information.
From that, you can maybe infer how it was used. Right, based on.
And time, right? If it's a
And you understand what I'm trying to,
yeah, I think it's yeah, I totally agree with getting that data, Gwen. I think it's important to think about all of our use cases and all of these use cases, right? And we talk a lot about access to jobs, access to healthcare. It's also clear that the bus transit is access to recreation too, right? In terms of getting on a bus and going to a park, or we are that transport piece. We aren't able to provide some of the benefit of the recreation, but understanding sort of the use case.
our premise
Yeah.
is more important than the sub-premises.
Yeah.
Okay. And,
I think also just, the advantage of being a consultant is that you can get thrown out when you say things that everybody wants to hear or not want to hear. So one of the things that is clearly an opportunity to think is whether Red Bike is appropriate as a standalone system, right? And so, and you obviously believe there's value in where.
I'm not going to say that.
I understand that.
Don't
No,
put
no.
that- don't put
You
that in
as a
minutes.
group believe there's value in Red Bike being part of our transportation system. Where those dots are connected is something that I think is part of a larger conversation. And so.
Again, I'm not saying that.
Yes, ma'am. I am saying that. I'm saying
Can
that.
I jump in a follow-up question? I have several, but I hadn't thought about this. Gwen, thanks for bringing it up. Is there ping data on the bikes? Like, does it give a locational ping every sometime? Yeah,
Can I weigh in on that real quick, Doug McClintock, ED of Red Bike. There is not. I have point-to-point data. We have a tracking system that is available for us to locate bikes when they've gone missing, but there's not ants on a map, right?
Okay.
We don't have that data set.
I didn't think so, but I thought maybe it was suggested, and I was like, oh, well, that changes everything.
Right.
Let's
I
get
mean,
into
we-
Power BI and
Right,
get some
you
maps.
know-
Okay.
We know. Okay. And then third question. Well, okay, I'll stop at the third one because your budget projections are based on 7 months operation.
So, the short answer is yes, with a caveat. I mean, we clearly have a couple years of data in terms of budget information. When we look at putting together a budget for 25 and 26, the most recent data we're going to have is 8 months. And so the level of confidence that the first 8 months after a 4-month closing is going to drive usage is probably not as high as it should be. So I think we have to take a look at what are reasonable projections and assumptions and what haircut makes sense as we think about. As I mentioned earlier, adjustments were made to the fare box. We're coming to the end of probably the most usable period during the calendar year. So ridership was down a little bit, revenues are stable. So is that going to hold if we go through a significant change? I think that's a risk that we need to highlight and think about. The integrity of the numbers makes sense, but there is a reality check as we look at folks using it.
Andy?
Yeah, and one of the things that this board asked when you all decided to contribute in 2024 and be part of this discussion, one of the fundamental questions was, the cost structure for Red Bike, can this be solved by just looking at their expense profile and looking at the way they do business? I mean, that was just a fundamental question, right? And I think when we look at this slide, when we look back at, slide 8, I think is a good one. Yeah, Hugh and Robert did a very good job of pulling this information together. Natalie, can you go to slide 8, please? I think this is a fundamental question that is answered is, what does it cost Red Bike to put a trip out in the system? And what you can see is based on all the other systems we have, it's pretty effective in terms of the cost that it takes to put it on the street. There may be minor differences that you can make in the budget, but overall, you can see some systems in here that are upwards of $60, $70 $40, $50 a trip, and Red Bike is below 10. So from a cost perspective, there's probably some work to be done in terms of budget, but from a budget management perspective, I don't think there are budget changes or expense changes that you can make that close this entire gap.
So I have a question, if I can, on that. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
And that's just from the expense side.
So large number of trips as part of the Go Pass program. Do the other dots on the map, the other systems, have the same profile in terms of Go Pass? Because it seems like that would really affect the data, and then I wasn't sure if you actually ran this data without Go in it to share the same efficiency numbers.
I think the data that we have access to combines. There's no question that the Go program has an impact on revenue. It also has an impact on usage. So one of the things when we talk about a fare box policy, one of the things we're currently sorting through is if I could put my fiscal hat on, we love people who pay for a day pass and use it once, right? People who pay for a month and use it like 30 times is not generating enough revenue per ride, if you will. And so we have to dig into the data to see whether we're missing something that's important about how usage is. Some other systems charge 4-hour periods, 6-hour periods, not a day period. And so if we implemented another option or requirement in the fare box as we move forward, might we raise some more revenue, but might we also depress usage, right? So there's a balancing act there that we want to be thoughtful about while recognizing that the current structure has a built-in subsidy.
And
Even for full pain, it has a built-in subsidy, which is significant, and which requires closing the gap.
On the Go program in particular, I have some real questions about the sustainability of that program absent a direct subsidy to support it. Just the way it's structured, I know that it will be part of this fare box review, and I know that later on in here you note that because of the low cost of that program, even if you doubled the cost of it, it's only like $4,000 incremental to the system. But when you think about sort of like the rider profile in terms of use case, there, and I'm gonna get these numbers wrong, so I won't try to get them right. But there are a handful of users who are like super users on steroids in terms of that program. And so figuring out a way to either support that program as it exists through subsidy, and there are, I think, probably interested parties that maybe are not at this table to support that program. That's more a philanthropic strategy, or making tweaks and changes to how that program operates to really be targeting the type of ride and rider that you're talking about, the sort of connecting people to where they need to go. There's some outliers in that data that I feel really strongly about getting right as part of a solution, because right now there are some real super users there.
Keep in mind, I have no problem with recreation versus
Sure. Yeah, no, I hear you.
That's the urban,
Yep.
No,
I hear you.
psyche right now. But I'm just saying, in terms of where we are, for the last, I'm going to say 3 years, our mind has been on expanding.
Yep.
And moving out and serving more people and being more recognized in that ecosystem for what we do.
Yep.
And when we're talking about a program that is not expanding, that's sitting here, and we're not sure who's using it, where they're going, so those kind of things.
Yeah, no.
Again, I don't know if it comes in the second phase of this or the third phase to get these kind of answers.
Yeah, and I'm interested, what technical analysis has been performed or investigated when it comes to how this system is operated?
I'm sorry, I lost the last part of your
Ms.
question.
Clark, so go ahead, speak in the microphone so we can. I can't hear you.
I said what technical analysis has been performed or investigated when it comes to the operation of this system? I don't see that.
When operating efficiencies. So we're looking at comparative data, which is all public information, and then comparing, and then we're we're taking a deep dive into the Red Bike budget itself and seeing how that is built relative to the users and relative to the multiple sources of revenue. So when we put the budget together for the board to consider next month, we have a cost structure that's built in, and we have some opportunities for further investment.
Okay.
Okay.
Can I pivot for a second, Ms. Clark? Or do you have a follow-up question?
Yeah, that wasn't quite the answer I was looking for, but I guess it's a no. But
Hugh, I want to. So, Ms. Robinson talked about recreational use. Gwen, I don't know why I do that. You can call me Don, but I'm just inside joke. Behavioral elements to this. We talk a lot about efficiencies in this with regard to all the reporting. One benefit we have at Metro, and we just heard it today talked about, is the partnerships we have with our users, right? Was not a measure of efficiency in any way, is how we have the ability to track users with CPS at Government Square, for example, when we have concerns about behaviors of people using our transit. Well, we have people in control of those. I think one frustration on a macro level that a lot of pedestrians like myself have, and many, many others in the CBD, is that whether it be scooters, Lime scooters, or other modes of transportation, a lot of the most vulnerable population struggles to deal with users that don't comply in any way with proper use. We all want to think about the 95% that use things properly, but the reality is the 5% that abuse sidewalks, and frankly, I don't want my mom walking anywhere near some of these users. I have to dodge users all the time downtown, on scooters, on bikes, and everything else. Now, we've all been in other cities where we do see proper usage, and I'm not trying to harp on this, but it's important. How can we even partner with organizations to regulate the behavioral elements of the people that are sometimes using these modes of transportation? Because it becomes dangerous. And if you're in a wheelchair, I don't want to speak on behalf of people that we have on this board because they certainly know more than I do, or elderly, or young population that don't understand that they have to dodge somebody coming at them directly, or a car where people are going the opposite direction in traffic. It is exhausting, and it wears people out. It wears me out. And I'm tired of it, and I think it's a macro subject. It's not a Cincinnati subject, but the lack of regulation of usage, I don't know if it's a law enforcement issue or how we have the ability to have some controls on this. But if Red Bike could consider that, and the Chamber of Commerce consider that, that would be really useful for us.
So that might be a little
There's
bit beyond
design element
Yeah.
to the cityscape that is important to consider, and those are long-term, large issues.
Yeah.
So, if
Well,
it's not
we're
designed
supporting
for
it
bike-
with tax dollars,
Yeah,
Right.
no,
right?
not
Right.
disagreeing
And we're
with you.
supporting the enforcement, we're supporting the usage. What are we inviting,
Right.
right? Fewer pedestrians, or pedestrians getting hit by things more often?
Right. And I'm really concerned about the demand analysis in terms of we should be able to see what that looks like. And then that should be baked into certainly a revenue prediction as well model that I'm
So
not
the
seeing.
larger question of good behavior in public and appropriate usage of rental equipment is probably beyond the writ of our consulting project. It's a huge issue. There are cost issues that are involved. There are safety issues, as you related. There's usage. I could expand that to driving behind trucks on the freeway, all of whom should be removed in the view of some people. So it's clearly an
so the
issue. I think
discussion
there
right
are
now-
cost
I actually think though
implications.
that issue comes in when you think about I'm going back to the phases of work. I think it's really about leadership and partnership, right? Because if you think about what a version 2.0 or whatever number you want to call it of Red Bike is, it's who sits around that table, who's helping lead that organization, who can plug into those conversations to say if
It'd be phase 3.
we're two. This is 1.5.
Pete, I just don't know when to interject that sort of.
No, I think it makes total sense, and I think that like having the city of Cincinnati more directly involved in the bike share system than it's ever been. I mean, it's been a funder, it's been a help to launch it, but it's really been not represented on the board or elsewhere. They're the ones who design the streets. They're for whether they're safe for people to ride on or not. They're the ones who deal with enforcement issues. Having partners at that leadership table who can have a much more prominent voice in that conversation, have Red Bike having a more prominent voice in that conversation, I think is where you handle that.
Okay.
So, and again, this is probably beyond the scope of your engagement, but we're looking at a couple years for operational changes. If I understood some of the bullet points, like there's no changed operations for next year, and likely for the subsequent year, or am I misreading one of those bullet points?
I think that so I think where you're headed is sort of realigning around our system. If this were to continue, then and I think there are ways to do that relatively quickly, and then there are ways to do that take some time. One is and there was some data shared with Metro about each station's usage, right? I'm a huge proponent of realigning this bike share system to put it not just in major corridors, but to put it embedded into the communities where we have high quality service to be able to connect into the bus service. Theoretically speaking, you could move some stations around relatively quickly to say, we're not going to have 10 stations in this place, we're going to have 8, and we're going to move 2 somewhere else. I don't want to speak for Doug, but that's a relatively short order process. Now, if you wanted to add new stations to new places, actually plus up the number of stations, that takes a little more time because there's usually procurement processes and you'd have to find the funding and those types of things. So that's it's a mid.
Some important nuance.
Yes. I also think that the way you think about the business model, so being able to closer link usage of one to the other when it comes to fare structure or pass usage, it doesn't strike me that that's a multi-year effort. It strikes me that you could say we want to find ways to connect monthly bus pass users to access bike share and vice versa. And that's a technical conversation between the planning teams here and the Red Bike team to figure that out. That doesn't strike me as not paid to be a technical person, so I could be sort of shortening the timeline on that, but I don't view that.
There are many hats.
But none of them are technical. So that's my perspective.
So Hugh, thank you for coming and presenting. Are there any more comments or questions for Hugh?
Who's the new partner? Who's the new partner?
OKI.
OKI.
Yeah, their clean air program.
Considered in the new partner. Okay.
Yep.
I have a question for Andy. I'm always surprised by how loud this is.
That's why it's amazing you can get that second in.
I know, right? So, Andy, when we started this several months ago, I asked about the return on investment for the advertising partnership we were starting. And at that point, you said, we're still working through the details of that. Do we have those details worked out and maybe an answer to that? This is outside your purview, sir, I think, but.
We do. We have worked with Doug and his team on identifying the advertisements and the stations and the contract, and that all of those materials are in production, if not yet in the process of being installed. So all that has been worked out, and the contract has been finalized, and the spend and the eyeballs and the marketing approach has been finalized, and we can share that with you offline if you want to see the details.
Yeah. It's worth noting that when upon reopen to every partner, there's a sign at every bike dock now with the logos of every partner. So that's been there since day 0 of launch, and then there's Metro specific as well.
I think this is separate from that, but to the point Mr. Driehaus mentioned, is that it is very frustrating. I'll use that word. The behavior of some individuals who use scooters and bikes too, right? Is there a way through technology or something that we could say, just because I'm looking at you, Sarah, say you're riding a bike from somewhere and you leave it in the wrong place or you hit somebody, is there a way to say we're withdrawing Sarah's ability to rent a bike in the future because you behaved badly? like where we can kick somebody off a Metro bus if they're not doing something they should be doing. But is there a way for us to find that individual and say, you've lost your privileges to use this service?
For sure there is. We have to correctly identify them. It's a little bit more difficult when you have someone on a bus, right? A bike, if it's left in public domain and someone else picks it up, it's hard to identify them. But if we have an identity, yes, we can certainly prevent them. There are circumnavigation of that, right? They can fake a credit card. They can potentially find access in another way, but we can do our best to block them out of that situation, right? So yes, of course, we can take enforcement measures.
I think that would be important to consider in the future if we talk about expanding this outside into other communities. There's going to be, those community councils and those city councils, depending on where they are going to be asking us questions of what happens to our communities that we're not used to this completely brand new thing out here.
That's very valid. I mean, I think the other piece of that is to Mr. Metz's conversation is it's those partnerships, especially with the partnerships with the city and the local jurisdictions, and building those relationships that have been really beneficial for us in creating adoption in neighborhoods that we've expanded to, and really a sense of ownership and involvement and engagement, and that two-way street that allows us to have good communication to understand what those challenges and problems are and address them at a specific level, and then involve the appropriate authorities as we move through that. I have conversations with CPD weekly as we've had challenges, Government Square, all those sort of situations. We're dealing with the same challenges y'all are in that space, so we're all working together in that space. So thank you, Neil. Appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you, Doug, for coming up, and thank you again, Hugh.
Sure.
So it's a little bit of a roadmap for you, Doug, to future questions probably on the subject. Okay, thanks for the time on that, Pete. Ridership report, Mark?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mark Simon. I'll be doing the ridership report for you all today. Sort of a shorter, less svelte version of the guy who did this last month. If you remember me. So for the month of August, our total fixed route ridership was 1,207,000. Local service carried 1,178,000 of that, and express carried 28,400. So this was favorable to budget overall by 1.6% and 1.2% favorable for local service. Express service ridership was nearly 20% favorable to budget. The next slide shows that general trend as we get back into the school year. In August, you see that upward swing that typically continues into the fall. On the next slide, you'll see the average weekday ridership for August was nearly 45,000 rides, which was just slightly unfavorable to budget by 0.8%. Average Saturday ridership was 27,139, which is well above budget. And average Sunday ridership was 21,250, slightly unfavorable to budget by 0.3%. All numbers well above last year's. For local service productivity, we achieved 16.5 passengers per hour, as well as a cost recovery of 8%. Please. And for express service, we did achieve a productivity of 7.7 passengers per trip and a cost recovery of 10.9%. On-time performance did dip to 73.6%. Typically, when school comes back into session, traffic gets pretty crazy around the schools. That tends to die off further into the fall, but certainly an impact to our on-time performance there. For the month of August, there were 641 missed trips. It means we operated 99.1% of our scheduled service. And just as a reminder, does not always mean there was no operator. There can be other issues that relate to a missed trip. And the next slide shows that day by day missed tripped there for the month of August. And the next slide does show that daily average. Something to note, typically Sunday is quite high. This month it was quite low. For access ridership, in the month of August, we gave 15,252 rides, unfavorable to budget by about 15%. Weekday total ridership was 13,861. Saturday total ridership was 784, and Sunday total ridership was 607.
Hey, Mark, on access
Yeah.
ridership, we talked at a previous meeting about starting to understand if we're seeing transitions from access to Metro now.
Mhm.
Have we done any additional data on that? You're working on it? Okay.
That'll
I just
come,
wasn't
yes.
sure if that's some of what's driving this flat here or not.
Update for you on that after this. So, yep. So next slide shows that access trend ridership. It is slightly divorced from fixed route because it doesn't have that typical summer dip when schools go out of session, or there's a slight dip, but generally steady throughout the year. And on-time performance was just about 89% for access based on pickup and drop-off time windows. So productivity for access was 1.97 passengers per hour compared to the KPI of 2.2. But cost per passenger was under KPI for $49.47 per access customer. Metro Now. All right. So Metro Now continues to climb to 7,684 riders in the month of August amongst the two different zones. And the next slide shows that weekday ridership increased to an average of 275 riders per day. Saturday ridership was about 182, and Sunday average ridership was around 178, and that's combined for the two zones. And then here you see for the Springdale-Sharonville zone, the heat map of destinations here. So the Woodlawn Kroger does continue to be the top location for this zone, as well as other shopping areas. And then here, the North Gay Mount Healthy zone, which is the higher ridership of the two zones. You can see lots of destination concentrations along the main roads, particularly Coleraine and Hamilton Avenue, as well as the Clover Nook Apartments, the eastern side of Mount Healthy, generating a lot of rides. So generally, you can assume that for a destination, there's a corresponding origin. So when you see something like that for an apartment, that means that there's a lot of people originating from that development. So this is the portion of the presentation that we typically not go over here. It is included in your packet showing route level KPIs. If there are any questions on those, we'd be happy to answer. And if not, thanks for listening.
Thank you, Mark. Any questions from Mark?
I was mostly just interested in the Route 61, the new route, the Galbraith Road, how that's doing. I was trying to find it in here, but sort of any narrative on that as it shows up in the data?
So as a new route, typically we see them start low and then ramp up as people start finding it more useful and adjusting their trips. So I believe it would be on the productivity KPI as it is new and obviously only ran for half the month. It is quite low as a start. We are seeing.
So too early to see real numbers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks.
I had a conversation last week with a manufacturer in the Springdale area, and as we were talking about the business, I asked about how their employees were getting to work, and without any prompting and without any knowledge of my association with Metro, they commended Metro for a partnership in helping to get their employees to work and figuring out public transportation out at this manufacturing facility. So great job reaching out to lots of different employers throughout the region.
That's great. Thanks, Sarah. Okay, thank you, Mark. Appreciate the report.
Thank you.
Andy, can you walk us through some of our action items here?
Certainly. As usual, we have two, your action items for procurements have been in your packet. We have two pretty straightforward procurements here today. The first is what we affectionately call CPGT 2.0, but we'll call it the Capital and Grants Tracking Software. This is what we have currently is a old unsupported and access database that we use to track all of our capital grants, all of our federal grants, and the capital projects within. It is very labor intensive to keep that system up to date because it doesn't interface with any of our other systems. So we went out to bid for a new capital grants and tracking software platform. We had a ton of interest, as you can see in the action item detail. We are recommending to move forward with the vendor called Ignatius, which is a 3-year contract for $199,800 that is budgeted, and it will help us be much more aligned in federal funding, local match, timing of projects, cash flow of those projects, and how that relates to our operating and 5-year capital budget. So important piece of software that is long overdue in terms of an update. The second is yard management. Yard management is a tool that we will use to track vehicles on property. So might not seem like a very important thing, but if you think about Queensgate itself, we have over probably 5 acres under roof, right? So there are 300 fixed route buses, but at Queensgate, there are a couple hundred vehicles that are operating, that are parked underneath the roof, and we don't know where they are, right? When they have GPS, they're out on the road, but when they're in the garage, our dispatch doesn't know. They know where they are through paper and manual processes. They definitely do. But that's, again, a very labor-intensive process, and yard management would be to track those buses in real time inside our facility, and more efficient management of that resource. You save a couple minutes if finding that bus, operator finding the bus, locating it. If we can save a couple minutes on every bus every day, it's significant savings and efficiency to the organization. Trapeze is a group that we already have installed in our CAT ABL system, and they would be the vendor to provide that. This would be a federally funded procurement. We received a technology grant through FTA to do this, so it's 80% federal. And our procurement team pushed hard on the XBE side of this and identified 2 XBE vendors that are subs to Trapeze, with resulting in about 21% XBE spend with this contract. Happy to answer any questions, and there are experts in the room if we have questions.
So thanks for walking us through those. And our action would be to move that to the agenda for the full board next week, correct? Do we make a motion to move it to the?
Yep.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve these 2 procurement items. Can I do it together? Or do I have to do it separately?
And I second it.
I've always thought them separate, but I think they can happen as a group.
Just
They'll put them on the consent.
We'll put them on the consent agenda for the board.
You do one.
Can I do it as one motion?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Great. So I'll make a motion to move both procurement items to our consent agenda for the full board. Is there a second?
I second it.
Second. Discussion? Okay. Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, great. Thank you all for that. Any new business? Pete, any new business?
It's not new business, but it's an announcement. So tomorrow, the Chamber is releasing our State of the Region report at the Ballet at 9 a.m. There's an expanded section on transportation that includes good data on metro, ridership, and safety. And our own Andy Aiello will be on a panel discussing the report afterwards. So you're all welcome to come. I would love to see you there. It's a 75-page document on sort of data for the region. So
Cool.
no action needed.
I was just kidding.
I would like to take up.
I'll send a registration link around.
I'm looking forward to that report.
Yes, I'll be dancing actually afterwards.
I will be there.
No, Pete, I'm looking forward to that report.
Yeah.
And how we seem to be, I guess, the experiment for what the nation is looking like. So I really look forward to that.
Some of the data we see in this room will look familiar in that, but it's a much larger sort of audience. So cool.
Just want to, and I'll probably defer this to the executive committee, which committee will discuss, and the procurement reminded me, we do not have a policy on DEI or any other supply diversity policy, no formal policy on any of it. And by grace, our staff is committed to it. Our board is committed to diversity. So we just been functioning.
Yeah.
The question, with the nation moving towards eliminating those opportunities, do we need to have a discussion on a policy for this organization? So that's just a discussion issue.
Sure. Okay.
And this committee may be the one to discuss it, or is it the executive? I'm not sure.
Yeah, and we're required
either.
currently, to your point, we are required currently to have a DBE policy that is reviewed by the board. And so you all see that every year or two. That policy, again, to your point, meets federal requirements.
That's it.
Right? And when federal requirements change, we will be required to change that policy. If federal requirements change, rules, regulations, so on and so forth. So I think that we can definitely bring that policy issue up to this committee as you all
Could
see
you
fit.
could you give us, like, not today, but like bring to it like the background of when we created that and what adjustments we've made to the verbiage through the years?
Yep.
I mean, Harley
Sarah?
Davidson changed their policy.
I'm sorry.
Harley Davidson changed their policy. So a lot of
I see.
companies
Okay.
are privately changing them based on some of the federal connotation stuff that's been stated, so it just.
Let's talk
to-
more.
Huh?
Let's talk more.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so, thank you.
Sarah?
Yeah, earlier, I think Blake and Andy mentioned APTA, and so I went to their website and I noticed that there's actually a workshop on transit ballot initiatives coming to Cincinnati in December, and that's pretty exciting. So yeah, so like they obviously chose to come here for this, I would guess, because of our success, and I'm curious to hear more about that. And then if there are opportunities for board members to pop in, you know, to different sessions, I think that would be really a neat opportunity.
We are partnering with APTA for their Transit Ballot Initiative Conference. They hold it every other year. And because we were one of the cities that had such great success with passing Issue 7, they wanted to host it here and hear our story of how we were able to do that, as well as other systems across the country. Well, there'll be other sessions of other systems telling their story as well, but we would be the home story. And so we'll be reaching out to a few of our partners who have helped us do that around building the community coalitions and the campaign side. We'll talk about what we were able to do from the awareness side and telling that whole narrative. But certainly it starts December 9th, thank you. And it's going to be held at the Westin. And so I will send information out. They're still in the planning phase, so it hasn't opened up for registration at this time. But certainly once everything is finalized and details are available, I will share that with the board, and you all are certainly welcome to be there. Oh, absolutely. There will be, I mean, without giving too much of the thunder away, we'll certainly talk about the impact that we have been able to make because of it. We'll talk about what the role was to get there. And then we'll have some panel discussions from some of the key stakeholders who were instrumental in helping us achieve that success and all the different pieces that had to come together to make that possible. Absolutely.
That sounds like an opportunity to get like Brendan and Craig and others together to tell stories.
When they
which
did
is
that conference
always
2 years
fun for
ago,
me.
Brandy and I were on a panel together in Austin. Was it Austin? It was hotter than hell. So it must have been Austin, but it's a great conference. It's super collaborative, right? Like they do sessions of like
Love to go.
having successful campaigns sit with future campaigns and just talk and facilitate conversations.
Yeah,
It was a great
powerful
conference.
campaign.
Yeah.
That's great.
Okay, great. Thank you, everyone. Our meeting is adjourned. Have a good day.
We have a lot of stuff. You have a lot of good